This is Melanie from YouTube, and this right here is the tallest tree in the whole world. No, but for real, my name's Melanie Tana. Welcome to my channel. I love to talk about stories of all different kinds. Usually I'm talking about books, and today I'm straying from that path a little bit. And I'm talking about my new favorite TV show and everyone's new favorite TV show, which is Severance on Apple TV. I finished season 2 a few weeks ago now, and ever since then I've wanted to make a video about it. I tend to talk about what I learned and what I loved about a thing. I don't do straight up reviews, but I felt like I couldn't talk about anything unique, and I'm not necessarily saying that this video is unique, but I don't have any crazy theories. I love the theories from Severance. Obviously, could talk all day about how intellectual this story is, but my love for the show and for pretty much every story I've ever enjoyed is taken from the characters. I could obviously dive into what I love about the characters, all the little details about them, but that would also be kind of, I feel like, generic, but I want to talk about what we can learn from them as writers, and also maybe get a bit real. Before we continue, I will say there will be light spoilers, though I'm trying not to get into every little thing about the show. Some references to characters' individual arcs might come up. I'm gonna try to avoid really big reveals and talk more about the writing and the company they work at, and sort of how cults operate in a specific way with these characters. So yeah, characters are compelling. We want them to achieve their goal, overcome something, fight the antagonist. Obviously, Severance has a lot of that. A lot of characters on every side, in every corner, have something that they care about, have a reason that they show up to work every day and do what they do. Severance is a show about characters who go through the severance procedure at a company called Lumen. The severance procedure allows their brains sort of to be split, or their minds to be split into two different lines of memory. So they have their outside self that lives their regular day-to-day life outside of work, and then they have their work self, and neither can remember the experiences of the other, basically creating a whole other person inside the same body, but this created person experiences life in their workplace, and that's their whole life. Obviously, there is a lot, like, philosophy-wise and ethics-wise that comes into play with that. That is huge, very intense. But something that I found interesting is that there isn't just the loss of the inside and outside self, the separation of the two. The innies aren't just suffering or struggling. They aren't just motivated because they don't get to go into the outside world. They're struggling with their identity, who they are, their rights, what that means for them. And even at work, even being their work self, doing a good job at work, they are often challenged in how they present themselves, how they display their personality. This show isn't just compelling because of the fun, heartfelt characters and their plights, but also because of the company/cult that seeks to control the personal identities and characteristics of these characters. Like in most stories, right off the bat, you have heroes, main characters, protagonists, who are in a situation where they'd like to change their situation, and they have an antagonist getting in the way of that. But it isn't just their circumstances, it isn't just their physical location or lack of agency or physical barrier that is in their way or being challenged, but also the high demands of a cult that not only wants to keep them and control them, but wants to control them in a certain way. If you know anything about cults, then you know that cults love control, and they love to pick up the things about a person that can be considered a strength or a tool, and use it for their own benefit. Historically speaking, cults will draw someone forward and call special attention to them because of their special abilities or particular talents that can be used in the favor of the group or cult. So Lumen isn't just an enemy of their rights, but also of their individuality and like their spirit. Any personality trait of an individual they either want to use for their benefit, for the company's benefit, or to squash, to put down, basically. There are a lot of examples in the story of this. Right away, I thought of Dylan. He's a typically perceived funny character, but the writers didn't just leave him at that. He wasn't just there for laughs, even though his crude humor and his competitiveness make him a funny person. He is not trying to be a class clown. He's not just trying to make jokes. He is very serious about being the best in his 4-person office workspace. He loves the swag that he receives. He's very ambitious. It makes him come off as a little bit mean and snarky, but it's also an admirable trait, and Lumen sees that right away. And I think that they kind of don't suspect the threat that might be, like, to their company. But a driven person like that, like Dylan, yeah, he's gonna get the job done. They want to use him for increasing profits, and they can motivate someone like that so easily because they just give him a task to do and tell him, this is the reward if you do the task better than anybody else. And he does it. And that is motivating for him. That drives him deeply. He's just generally ambitious about what he cares about and what he feels entitled to. And so when he has an experience where he kind of glimpses the outside world and recognizes that there's something being kept from him that he believes he is entitled to, he feels that challenge. He also bonds with his friends very deeply. And that bond, for an ambitious, driven person, is going to be protected and fought for at all costs. If you've watched the show, you know that Dylan is a fighter and is also enduring and truly does not give up on his people because he just doesn't give up. He's not a quitter. He's a winner. And when Lumen can't control that, that is used directly against them to help his friends and for him to earn what he believes he is entitled to once he realizes that he does not have everything that he deserves. And I think that they could have just tossed out this character and made him funny and we would have still cared about him, but it is so much more than that and it is so much deeper than that. Another character that I love, whom I think everybody loves, is Irving. Irving is a little bit of an older gentleman. There's a lot of theories about his time spent at Lumen. He wants to do good work, but he wants to follow the rules. He's also very strengthened by love. And that love for a long time was given to Lumen, the company, and to Kier, the founder of Lumen. They're like revered, almost god status person that Irving, as a standout from the rest of them, idolizes. He loves Kier. He loves everything about the history of it. Reminds me of growing up in high demand religion, where founders and history is so esteemed and so special to people. That is how Irving perceives the world, and that love can be given to Lumen until one day, wandering in other offices, he meets another person who he ends up directing that love to, taking a bit away from the love for Lumen and the love for Kier, and therefore the love of the rules that he's been following all this time. He now doesn't care so much about that. In fact, I'd say his love and his also love for his friends is the most empowering and passionate of all the characters for the first little bit, especially because he was such a dedicated follower. And so he said, here's my love to this company. The company said, thank you. The cult said, thank you so much for your loving donation of your service and of your obsession with our rules. And then when he had love directed somewhere else and he was punished for it, he probably had to ask himself, is my love not what you wanted? Is my love not something that you find very good and admirable in me? Or is it just my love in the service of you? And that is a real game changer for someone in a cult who's obsessed with the cult. Like I've said, he's the most invested in the cult aspect itself. Everyone else is invested in the work, in leadership, in their friendships, but he's invested in the work itself. Of course, there's the main character, Mark. Love little Mark. He has a different side of love. There's a lot about him. I'd say his grief for losing his wife, which drives him to be severed, so he can escape that grief for part of his day, and another version of himself can just work and not be thinking about his wife. They can so easily use that grief. They can bring him to a group of people he can do good work with, and he can go home. I think they think it's going to be kind of easy. There's also some necessity to Mark being there that if you watch more of season 2, you'll get an understanding. But he's a very controllable person for a while because you put him in a content place with his friends. There's a part of him that is escaping grief. And escape from negative outside experiences is often what can drive people to cults. It's what cults prey on, are devastating experiences. They tell you they have the answers and that you can escape, and that is what he manages to do for a little while, at least. But then that grief, which is this love for someone that he can't share with her any longer, that grief kind of, I think, redirects to his friends. He is put in a leadership position and is in charge of them and their well-being to a certain degree, and that kind of switches gears for him, for what matters and for why he does this mysterious and important work he's been called to do. The last of the severed characters that we really focus on, Helly R. Her experience is very interesting. You don't know a lot about her. Unlike Mark, you're not sure where she came from. I'm not going to go into great detail there, but Helly R is a very fiery person from the get-go. She's fighting. She is defiant. And that's a very obvious trait that a cult would want to sort of squander, to say, no more, please don't rebel, please don't throw things. But she is sort of proof that there are things that cannot be controlled about us. There are pieces of us that rebel, that want to escape the control and cannot accept it. It's something that can be used by a cult, and they actually kind of try to use it in some ways, but it's really hard to gain control of a person whose strongest trait is defiance, and then combine that with her connection to other people. It's a tough game for them to play with her. She's very tricky to contain, especially considering more details about her. It's a very interesting dynamic. And then we get to like one of my favorite characters of the show. I'd say in my top 3 probably is Mr. Milchick, or Milkshake, as we like to call him. The show and the fans like to call him that. So Mr. Milchick starts out in a assistant management role and gets promoted. That is important to my video here. It's not really much of a spoiler. He's very involved. He does a lot for the severed floor, and he has to manage a lot for this company. And you would think that being in a management position, he would, obviously can and is a perpetrator of that control and of that oppression of the people who work for Lumen, especially the severed people. But as an employee, he is still beneath somebody else who wants a quota reached, who wants money and success, and also wants control, as they are not just a company but a cult. Even though he is not a severed employee, he is controlled and othered through the criticism of his speech, his eloquence, his verbosity. It is criticized and put down, because when he uses big words, when he knows exactly what he means and he says exactly what he means, it is something that is empowering and promotes an idea that he's an intellectual, and an intellectual person can be a threat in a place that asks you to follow the rules and not question anything. Especially when you're leading other people, they want him to keep it sweet and simple and not verbose, and they want to do that to not inspire anything in that workplace, though the true reason for them to call out his speech is racism. It is one of many microaggressions Lumen's superiors perpetrate against Milchick, to a point that adds up and makes him feel put down. He's ultimately told he needs to dumb down his language and it's treated as a bad thing, which is funny because it is a unique and special thing about him. But they cannot have anything unique and special because they won't just stop at personality traits to control and put down the individuality of a person. They use his race as a means to connect him to Lumen, as if the only way his race is important is as it serves Lumen, as if nothing about his individuality is his, to own, to use, to be, to sort of meld him with the company as an ever-present reminder that he can only carry pride for himself as a Lumen employee, not as a man, and definitely not as a black man, which is a terrible, terrible thing. And so, painfully, ragefully done. Watching that, I was like, oh, that happens. No one is severed in real life. Unless, that's secretly happening somewhere. No one has gone through this severance procedure. It's a sci-fi thing that makes a really great story. But the microaggressions that he experiences are very, very real. We see time and again that Milchick is creative and determined and probably exhausted and overworked. And then he is reminded that the ways in which he is himself and is unique need to be put down, and that he needs to stop that and simplify, because they want everyone to be simplified down into something that can't be recognizable to each other. There's a myriad of examples, honestly, at this point. You could also go into Miss Huang from season 2, the child that they employ, who is basically told to destroy her innocence and her childishness, that she needs to grow up. Even the person telling her to grow up, Mr. Milchick, is being told similar things. It's a chain of abuse that is almost never ending, though usually with cults, people get upset, people have had enough, they fight back. So this act of control, this use of people's skills and traits, melds people together. And even though we're taking away from individuality, we're not strengthening the community. That is something that they kind of make it seem like they want to do, but really it only strengthens the company. The cult, the corporate powers that be are strengthened by this, but not the individual people, and therefore not their neighbors, not their community. Because if they cannot be themselves, they cannot serve each other. They can only serve the thing that is puppeting them at that point. Erasing diversity and individuality takes away from your skills that can enhance a community and fill in the weak spots. Your best traits are given in service to a corporation, then your community is going to be inherently weakened because your energy, your time, yourself is given primarily to the power over you, not to your neighbors, not to your friends, not to your loved ones, not to yourself, but to the people who make money off of your existence. This is real. I know I'm getting real, and I know I'm getting so real that we're not talking about writing at this point, but I want to explain why this is important, why this makes for great writing. We'll get to that. But that rebellion, that bond with other people, that in Lumen is ultimately punished. So how is this a sign of good writing, other than to say that they really nailed cults and control of people's individual traits? I think so often, and this is not a bad thing, we have an antagonist, like I mentioned previously, who is just a physical barrier. They could have written a great story where Lumen is just a corporation that keeps them from seeing the outside world and says, oh, you have work to do. You have to do your work. You don't get to be and exist outside of the office space. But they do more than that. They not only keep them from the outside, but they keep them in a certain way on the inside and prevent them from being themselves and experiencing individuality. Structurally, we're seeing an antagonist that on the surface level challenges, gives an achievable physical conquering situation where we see the arc of what the character is trying to achieve, while also the underlayer of an iceberg of depth where the characters aren't just trying to get from point A to point B. They're not just trying to succeed in their quest, but they're also challenging their deepest identity along the way, which is a great story device for a character that you want to make more compelling. We, as humans in real life, not in the world of Severance, we immediately connect with these characters because we also often, most of us, have to get up each day and go to a job we care kind of, maybe not at all about. Serve other people, serve people above us who don't give us the time of day, and we are asked to set aside the little pieces of us at the door to enter the workspace and become a new family that is disconnected from our outside life. We are often stuck inside. We don't see the outside world. We don't see the sky. We won't ever see the tallest waterfalls because we are serving a power above us. Again, depressing and real, but it's not just that I have to go to work and I don't get to do what I want all day. It's that I have to go to work and I have to almost be another person while I'm there. And my strengths and my traits have to be used to optimize the place I work. We watch the show and we're like, oh, that's me. That's really real. You don't have to write a cult for your characters to be compelling. You don't have to write a company that keeps people trapped inside and tells them how to behave and how to be themselves. But I think we're all kind of tired of villains that are like, I'm going to destroy the planet. They say, hey, I'm going to destroy your way of life. This small contained piece that is special and unique to a character. And I'm also going to challenge who they are as I do it. Some of our favorite stories do that, and Severance does that very, very well. You don't need a cult to do that, but any sense of control that an antagonist might have over the character can be very, very compelling. That's coming from a person who's not published, but I like to look at other released and published works and say, look, let's figure out what they did well. And I think this is what they did really, really well. I'm gonna go put my glasses on. My eyes are looking into the ring light and it's painful. But that has been a sort of analysis of not a book, but a really great story. If you haven't checked out seasons 1 and 2 of Severance, I do recommend you do so. I want to know your thoughts. I want to know what you like and dislike about it. And I want to know what else you guys want to see in the channel. You guys are the very, very best, and I wish you all well. And I thank you so much for watching. I will see you next time with another video.